Oh my god, they're totally gonna rename the ship, man. I didn't even watch the episode, I'm already pissed. I know it's gonna suck. Take a deep breath now, okay? Boba Fett was a nobody in The Return of the Jedi. No character, no dialogue lines. All he does is fall into a Sarlacc pit, okay? At least be happy we got a Disney show now. Hey guys, welcome back to Star Wars Timeline. My name is Ben, and we're here to talk about the 4th episode of the Book of Boba Fett, The Gathering Storm. You can expect nothing but an honest opinion. And that's all it is. Everything I'm going to mention in this review is just my personal opinion, and I would actually love to hear from you guys. What did you think about this particular episode, the show overall so far, and how did you expect it will conclude? Now, a quick spoiler alert. Obviously, this is a spoiler-full review. If you didn't watch the episode yet, you have been warned. Please turn away now. And I hope you come back and we get to interact through commenting, and I get to hear your thoughts, guys, and comment back. We'll find out what this episode was all about for you. Anyway, let's dive into it. Overall, this episode felt like a mixed bag for me. There were a couple of things that I really liked, and others just didn't land quite properly. And I watched the show on a very basic level. This is like popcorn entertainment for me. This is exactly how I saw The Mandalorian. So honestly, neither show has disappointed me in any major way. I just didn't know what to expect, and I honestly didn't expect anything. But I think the devil's in the details. Even when you unplug, when you try to shrug off different things that you disliked and just enjoy the show overall, when the details that you dislike start piling up and bouncing, you start feeling like, okay, this is not the direction which I hope it would go, and it just becomes disruptive of your viewing experience. Anyway, let's dive into the story. We begin with this part where Boba Fett is by himself. He's in the desert with his trusty bantha, and I like that part. It shows like this quiet and brooding Boba Fett, and perhaps he's still mourning for his tribe, right? We see him completely decimated in the previous episodes. There is no more Tusken family that he had before. And he tries to infiltrate Jabba's palace. So at least we have a little bit of foreshadowing. We understand that Boba is making plans. He's not just trying to run in, guns blazing, and hope to win. So I like that part a lot. It's quiet. It kind of like centers on the character. I enjoyed it. And I also liked the practical effects, animatronics on the bantha. It kind of shows us that tangible feel. It's not completely done by CGI. I personally grew up with fantasy films in the 80s, like Willow, obviously the original Star Wars trilogy. So it always makes for a more believable effect for me. So I like that part a lot. Boba is sitting here by his campfire at night. He sees that light in the sky, obviously hearkening back to the episode from Mandalorian. He runs to check it out to see what happens, and he discovers Fennec Shan's body. She's there, she's dying. He recognizes her, right, as he mentions later in the episode. I like that part. It kind of shows us that Fennec Shan has a reputation as a bounty hunter, as this merc. He recognizes her. He sees value in, like, hey, if I rescue her, maybe she'll be the muscle. She'll help me out. And we're back to the cyberpunk kids. That's how I labeled them in my previous review. They're basically kids from cyberpunk. Very disruptive scene. Guys, I don't like it. It feels off. It feels like for the sake of innovation and try to do something different, the showrunners are playing in the sandbox and that they're not capturing the vibe and feel of Tatooine. I personally grew up with the original trilogy, so I have my own set of biases of what Tatooine is supposed to be. This is a frontier world where people are just trying to get by, and there is no room for finesse or like nothing to do, just kids chilling out and like putting, instead of tattoos like we would have in our reality there, they're trying to modify their bodies. It's weird. When we follow Luke's journey, he's like, it's a hard, toiling life. And as a young man, your life is just too busy to dwell on inconsequential things like that. It just feels off. The dude with the dreadlocks, the music, everything about it just felt off. But once again, I'm not being too emotional, too critical of it. I'm like, okay, this part just didn't work. Let's move on with the episode. But I do like how they basically deck out Fennec Shan. Excuse me. We see cybernetic implants. We obviously know what happens to Anakin Skywalker when he's transformed into Vader. I like that part. In order to save Fennec Shan, she still remains very human, right? Because later in the campsite, she's like coughing, she's trying to figure out, hey, what happened to me? But part of her torso is now cybernetic. And pay attention to what I say, torso, not the rest of her body. This is going to be pretty important later in the episode. So I like that. Then she wakes up and they have that little exchange, and Boba Fett is basically telling her his plans, what he plans to do. He needs both brains and muscle. So once again, I like that little interaction. One of my favorite parts of this episode because I was fully invested with Fennec Shand in the Bad Batch show, and we see a little bit of that character's development, exactly what I hoped for happening here. He tells her that his exact motivation, that he's tired of being this gunslinger, bounty hunter for people who are a lot more stupid than he is, and he feels like it's time to settle down in a way and carve his own little chunk of the Tatooine's empire. I like that. A lot of fans who are already like questioning the show in the direction where it's going, like, well, this is not Boba Fett. Boba Fett. We all have different biases. We all have different perceptions of what Star Wars is as a show, of what Boba Fett character is supposed to represent. I get that, guys. And I understand if you completely are not on board with this. But I saw a little bit of rational explanation. He's like, look, I've been there, done that, enough of that. I'm not going to just hunt bounties anymore. I'm not going to work for clients. I'm going to have my own empire, and I'm going to have people work for me. And I need to set this thing up in a particular way. I'm going to rule with respect, and, I get it. That's the point I'm trying to make. So that little exchange was pretty interesting, and I understood it. I also liked that when him and Fennec Shand get to the palace, finally we see some technology that kind of like makes the mission quicker and justifiable why, they didn't spend a whole more time prepping for it. She pulls out this droid. She says like, look, let's do some scouting, which kind of makes sense, right? It's a technologically advanced galaxy. Boom, the droid flies in, and I like the effect too. The droid has quite a lot of personality. It tries to hide. It hides behind the wall and see those sentries pass and like keeps exploring. And back to the campsite, we see the little feed that the droid gives us, that blue map. I'm going to call it, guys, Metroidvania. For those of you who are video gamers who play a lot of Castlevania games on Metroid, this is a pretty staple side-scrolling video game, a map, right, that you get. It shows like little platforms. It shows what's where. I was like, oh, Metroidvania map, that's really awesome. That was really cool little details that I liked. Now we get to the Palace Infiltration. Another part of the scene from this episode which kind of felt I'm divided about. There's aspects of it that I sort of felt were cool. Everything looks immaculate. Jabba's palace looks right in every sense of the word. The droid's there, the one that's chopping the salad, and the other one that we recognize that interrogated C-3PO a couple of years back in The Return of the Jedi. Everything looks immaculate. But here we get these like awkward fight scenes with droids that just feel weird. It almost felt like a cartoon. It felt like it belongs in an animation and a lot live action. We see this, hopefully I'm right on this, LEP-86C8 droid from the first season, episode 17 of the Clone Wars animation called the Blue Shadow virus, right? There's this evil doctor who is developing this virus underground, which is supposed to be as a biological weapon. And we have that little servant droid who also kind of like escapes and dodges and runs around. I get it. You're trying to bring a little bit of a Star Wars animation into live action and make it interesting for fans. But I feel the way that they animated that droid and the way that Boba Fett runs after him with a gaffy stick and then captures him and has to say, do you know who I am? I am Boba Fett. It just felt so ridiculous, so out of place. That entire scene felt like it would work really well if it was in animation, because animation by default gives you a sense that it's geared more towards kids. Here we're in live action. I understand this is Disney Plus. There's not going to be an M-rated show, but at least there could be a little bit more gravitas and like wow factor when it comes to the action scene. Because I would say in general, the gravity of the action in The Mandalorian is 10 times better than this show. Here, everything feels not forced, but like rudimentary and token, and like, hey, we need an action scene over here. Boom. Hey, we need a little bit of humor over there. Everything feels very, very contrived. And I don't like that. So anyway, they get into the main chamber. They see the ship. There's this token shootout. I guess it's not bad, but it's not great either. They dispatch all the weak way guards, right? And then we see Fennec Shand completely decimate Gamorreans. Now, this is hand-to-hand combat. Remember in the beginning of this review, I mentioned that I enjoyed how Fennec Shand was modified, and we see that she's still coughing, she's recovering. It's her torso that is being modified, right? Not her arms. In terms of her like physical strength, she's still very much human. She's like punching a single Gamorrean off the ship like it's nothing. And it's a hard sell for me. Maybe I'm being too picky. You guys let me know. It didn't sell it. We know that Ming-Na Wen is a very talented actress. We know that she does martial arts. That's all cool and nice, but two Gamorreans, they're supposed to be the muscle. These two giant tanks. Remember how Luke disables them? Yeah, that's right. With the Force, he doesn't even come in contact with them. Fennec Shand, she's like, punch here, punch there, and they're flying off the ship. It just looks so ridiculous. She has to have some kind of superpowers. I would have been cool if we see like her arm being blown off and now she has this completely cybernetic implant. That would have kind of explained it. But the way that it worked within the format of this episode, I wasn't sold at all. And then, of course, they get the ship, they fly out of there, and on their way out, they shoot this little pulley system on the gate, which was very, very confusing. Once again, I'm coming back to what I said earlier, that details sort of matter, even in this kind of popcorn show. We see that the gate has been pushed electrically, right? We see the lights blinking when Luke Skywalker goes there, when in the present time, Boba Fett and Fennec Shand are going through the gates. And it's an electric system. And now when the ship needs to finally make its escape, conveniently there's a pulley system that it shoots and boom, that the weight drops and the gate just rises on its own. Very, very weird. It feels like they're just slapping stuff in there in order for the plot of the episode to take place. Like, they need to get out, and this is how they do so. Very contrived. It's not very well thought out. It just feels off. I felt in that sense, once again, the Mandalorian show primarily had writing issues for me, but all the action, everything was a lot more thought out than it is here. Anyway, they fly out, and of course, they need to make a little detour. They make, to me, which was the most meaningless part of the episode, there's this comeback to the Sarlacc pit. Of course, they're going to come to the Sarlacc pit. Very predictable, very boring. This is like a creature feature episode from episode 1, The Phantom Menace, when they dive into the underwater with a Jar Jar in Tau, and they see these two animals fight each other off like the monster flick, just for the sake of thrill and excitement. And I felt that those creatures in episode 1 had no place in the film, and same here. Like, oh, we get to see a little CGI effect from the special editions of the Star Wars trilogy, that little Sarlacc pit. And I felt that the seismic charge was completely wasted on that thing. Because here's my thing. The question that I have, guys, is, and correct me if I'm wrong, we see Boba Fett crawl out of Sarlacc's pit with his armor on him, right? This is really, really weird. Like, was he delirious? He didn't remember this part? Like, what's the explanation behind it? Why would he go and try to find his armor exactly inside of the Sarlacc pit? This is really weird. The way that they positioned the ship to go and take a closer look, just odd. A very odd scene. It's, once again, it's not very well thought out. I didn't like it one bit. And then he said, well, that's not over yet. We gotta go. I have one more detour to make. And of course, he has to disassemble that biker gang that killed the Tuskens. That I liked. You know, there's a little bit of vengeance. We see the sharp edge to Boba Fett. He tries to avenge his tribe. I like that. And now we get to the second half of the episode where we're back in the casino or cantina, whatever that is, where the Twi'leks rule. And we see Black Chrysanthemum. And he starts just going buck wild and picking apart Trandoshans. At first, I thought, well, hold on a second. If the audience is not very knowledgeable of Star Wars lore, they might get confused and start asking, like, oh, wait, hold on a second. What is he doing? That's crazy. But then again, the Twi'lek woman, right, the owner of that establishment, she goes in and she tries to calm him down and explain where that beef is coming from. Not only Black Chrysanthemum was a former gladiator, but Trandoshans used to hunt Wookiees, as we see in the Star Wars animation. I believe Rebels. I forget which episode it was, but obviously we see Ezra Bridger and the rest of the crew try to save slave Wookiees, and we see prior episodes where we see these Trandoshan lizards hunt them. So the beef is understandable, and we understand this Black Chrysanthemum, he doesn't have any loyalties, he doesn't answer to anybody, and he's not going to listen to the house rules. I'm just going to go, and obviously there was that mandatory arm pull. I'm like, I see it coming, it's got to happen, he's a Wookiee, he's going to pull some arms off. Boom, it's pulled. Pretty interesting. I mean, they did a little bit of development here with Black Chrysanthemum, but once again, we see Boba Fett standing in the gate, and these two are standing there like nothing happened between them. I'm like, who is Boba Fett exactly? He's like the badass bounty hunter who doesn't want any stains on his name and reputation is important to him. Aren't you going to shoot this guy in the face? Oh yeah, he let him go in the previous episode. That's who Boba Fett is. Like, okay, whatever. That's what they want to run with. I'm not going to fault that. And then, of course, Boba comes out and he tries to appeal to his muscle senses. He's like, hey, I need some badasses on my side. You want a job? Boom, let's come. Work for me. You could sort of understand that because in the bounty hunter trade, probably, there is nothing personal. It's like, hey, this was a job. I tried to kill you. The Hutt twins hired me, but we have no personal beef. I could sort of buy that. That was okay with me. I didn't think it was completely amazing. I didn't think it was bad. It was just there. But when we get to the gangsters meeting, that's the lowest point of the entire show for me so far. And I know there's more episodes to watch. That's why I'm not going to review each episode separately. But again, it's something that I want to point out. As I said, it's an honest review. This is some of the poorest dialogue I've seen written in Star Wars. This is like prequel era writing to me. It's just so sloppy. It's so silly. It's all over the place. I'm sorry, guys, if I'm stepping on your sacred prequel ground. I'm sure you will let me know in the comments that I'm completely wrong. It's just sloppy. The credit I want to give to Star Wars prequels is that the story overall felt coherent. We knew what George Lucas wanted to do. It's just the delivery, the writing, the dialogues just felt a little stiff and all over the place. And I felt like George Lucas could have benefited from a lot of editoring from professionals. It just didn't feel right. So here, Boba Fett says that he wants everybody to collaborate and work together. All of the crime bosses are saying, why should we work with you when we could just step away from this meeting and just kill you later on and take over this territory? You have nothing to offer us. And Boba really Fett has nothing to offer them for their services. He has no bargaining chips, right? And he says that, on top of it, he says that the Pikes are coming in, they're taking our territories, but I have already interrupted their spice trade. Again, he's working against these very crime bosses that he invited because they are in favor of the spice trade. And suddenly this Tatooine is Boba Fett's planet. He barely spent a couple of years on this planet, and it's his home? I don't get that. I don't understand where Boba's connection and sentiment in regards to Tatooine is coming from. I don't understand why he invited all of these crime bosses when he has no bargaining chips. And I completely don't understand how he would trust them to maintain neutrality in case the Pikes come and try to create alliances against Boba Fett. Like, this is ridiculous. This is exactly what they're going to do. They're going to leave this meeting. They're going to go about their business. And as soon as the Pike approaches them, like, yeah, this dude is nobody. We learned from the previous episodes that nobody respects Boba Fett. So now that we see little Sarlacc crawling through the gate and Boba Fett throws it a bone, suddenly everybody's supposed to respect Boba Fett. Like, who wrote this stuff? This is ridiculous. And guys, again, I'm not the kind of channel that thrives on controversy or tries to piss people off. I'm just generally watching this episode. I'm trying to chew my popcorn, so to speak. And I'm like, dude, what is this? This is ridiculous. Like, what kind of negotiation this is? Yeah, if we were hoping for kind of like basic version of Sopranos, like Disney-fied Sopranos, we ain't gonna get it because the writing is just like so all over the place. That meeting had absolutely no meaning because Boba Fett accomplished nothing in this part. And this is the thing. Boba Fett, the good guy. Once again, it's the hardest sell for me. What happened with the scum and villainy? What happened to episode 5, Empire Strikes Back, where we see Boba Fett standing there capturing the hell out of Han Solo and delivering him to Jabba's palace. He's scum. He's not a good guy. If anything, he's an anti-hero, right? He kicks ass, he murders people, he follows only himself. And if you guys check out the Legends books, and even the modern canon comic books, he only fends for himself. He doesn't care about people. He doesn't care about alliances. He doesn't care about doing right by other people. He's like, I get mine. Anybody who stands in my way will get killed. In the scene, if Boba Fett was trying to be intimidated, I wasn't sold. I didn't believe any of it. So I would say in general, this episode was probably the weakest for me because everything rode on this middle chapter where they needed to build maximum tension in order to start resolving it in the future episodes, right? And tell us, okay, all the action breaks loose, and this is how Boba Fett assumes the throne. It didn't happen here. We spent some time with the cyberpunk kids. We spent some time in the desert of Tatooine at night. And we spent some time with that bullshit little shootout in Jabba's palace when Boba Fett is trying to secure his Firespray ship. It's no longer Slave One. I'm one of these fans who honestly doesn't care, guys. Surprise, I don't care. Slave One is a stupid name. I wasn't attached to it. I think Firespray sounds a little bit more gangster. It has a little bit more punch to it. Why would you call a ship Slave One? Because you transfer slaves on its bounties? Wow, gee. A little bit on the head, a little bit too literal. Firespray sounds like, hey, I'm gonna firespray your ass. And this is exactly what Boba Fett does to that biker gang. I don't know, it's just the name has a little bit of punch to me. I'm not gonna accentuate that part that Disney is rewriting Star Wars legacy. Like, who cares? I don't care about Slave One name. Again, you guys tell me. What I care about is powerful storytelling, even within the context of a Disney version show that is more geared towards family. I care about strong writing. I care about rooting for the main characters. And I care about how the characters are portrayed. And this is, I'm sad to say, is a completely Disney-fied version of Boba Fett in the sense that he's a good guy now. I can understand in the early part of the episode when he says that I'm done doing bounties. I don't want to do that anymore. I don't want to work for anyone else. I'm going to build my own empire. In that sense that Boba Fett is a changed man, I can understand that. But the Boba Fett, the good guy who spent his entire life hunting people down, is suddenly interacting with these crime bosses and says, I want justice. I'm going to rule, with justice and respect, and let's have neutrality here. I'm not sold. And again, this is a show that I didn't have high expectations for, so I'm not being disappointed with. I'm just having a kick with it. I'm seeing a little bit of action here. I'm seeing pretty eye candy. I'm enjoying the show on that level. As a closing for this review, I'll tell you this, guys. It's okay for Boba Fett show to be like this. To me, he didn't have any legacy. He's not a rich Star Wars character. He's a nobody who finally gets his own show. Like, okay, that's cool. If Kenobi's show has the same level of writing, tension, and action sequences, I will be completely disappointed. Guys, I will be tearing it apart piece by piece because Kenobi's show deserves so much more. They need to pay attention. They need to be careful. They're stepping on the sacred ground. And I can't believe I'm saying that because I was never a huge prequels fan. But there's so much legacy behind those movies and the books and comics books involved with that. I hope they get it right. Anyway, guys, this is my review of the 4th episode. It's not quite what I expected, but I got my little bit of fun out of it. Let me know in the comments below what you thought of it. As always, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate your support, guys. If you like this review, please consider subscribing, hit that bell button, and I'll see you next week for the review of the next episode. Take care.